Bills fans, what is up? Camp is officially opened. First practice in the books. Um, Nothing unordinary to speak about. Frank Gore got back on the field after having been put on the non-football injury list. That was kind of a little disconcerting. I was like, well, what happened? This is kind of things that you don't like hearing about. But apparently, I think he might have went through individuals at least. The only guy not practicing was Tyler Croft, but we all knew that. And for me, he's definitely a guy that I would see going into the year being a PUP guy. They want to carry him on and see what they have after week 6 when they have to, they have a 2 week window to activate him. And then he gets like a 2 week practice window where he doesn't count against the 53. But the two top questions, obviously, what does Josh Allen look like? And then probably 1B, maybe in some people's minds, 1A is the offensive line. It went as follows: Deion Dawkins at left tackle, Quinton Span at left guard, Morse at center, John Feliciano at right guard, and rookie Cody Ford at right tackle. And I think that line is certain positions anyway. At least in my opinion, I feel like the two guards and the right tackle are subject to change. It's very much TBD, to be determined. The offensive line. Um, I heard that Dawson Knox got a lot of burn. Uh, People already have, a lot of people this offseason have cut Jason Kroom. He was the starting tight end, maybe by default, but he was the starting tight end last year, pretty much, and ended the year as such, and showed some promise, had some bad moments, but definitely had some good ones too. So there you have it. We got to hear from the head coach, got to hear from the quarterback, got to hear from the general manager. Their message has been consistent about building, about growth and upward trajectory. They're not trying to put any numbers or in terms of wins and losses, things like that. But you just get from the tenor of what they're saying that they expect to field a better football team for the Buffalo Bills in 2019, and that I think we all expect that, given the additions they made, having Josh Allen in his second year, uh, the culture that they've been able to foster there at One Bills Drive, the new facility that's opened up, having a guy like Ed Oliver just fall right into their lap without having to move anything to acquire a guy that was, I believe, at this time last year, Bovada's pick to be he was our odds-on favorite to be the number one pick at this time last year when the odds opened up. So they have every reason to expect to put a better product on the field, down in, down out, game in, game out, and just really, really get a chance to compete and be a lot more in games. In games. You're not going to have games like, provided Josh Allen's healthy, you're not going to have games like the Colts game, the Bears game, the Saints game, prior year where you're just getting, the Baltimore game to open. You're just getting blown out of the water before the game even begins, and you just have no chance to gain any traction. And that's 3 games right there. Then you have the special teams miscues that I felt like cost the Bills a guaranteed 2 to 3 games. And if you swing 2 of those 3 games, you're maybe an 8-8 team, maybe another 9-7 team. Maybe you don't make the playoffs, maybe you do with help. This team was as horrific on offense for the first 8 to 10 games as I've ever seen. I want to say like 8 to 9. And then when Josh Allen, Matt Barkley came in, they really changed the tenor, especially once Allen started to let his legs do a lot of the talking, his arm in connection with Robert Foster, even Zay Jones. So we saw signs of life. There was definitely a pulse there. The cupboard was not bare. The running game definitely needs to be jolted, but that's kind of what I want to talk about today. Yes, this team does need to run the football. We've seen the New England Patriots show that when they need to buckle down, move people off the line, and run, they can do it. And that's been a staple of them for forever. Tom Brady, obviously, we know greatest quarterback of all time. We know all the accolades. I don't need to expand upon his resume, but in they've been able when he's had maybe that off game. I think of the Jonas Gray game. I think they cut him a few weeks after he ran for 200 yards. Brady wasn't having the best of games in Indy. They just buckled down, ran the football, and really held it down. That one rainy game, Bills 9-7 Marrone opt out year in 14. They just it was wet, it was nasty. They just buckled down at the end of the game with a Garrett Blunt and I believe Bolden and just James White, and they just ran the football to the tune of almost 270 yards. They did it a year, I believe, year prior, actually earlier that year. I think it was Stephen Ridley and Bolden, another 200 plus yards. So when they've been able to pretty much do what they wanted on offense for the most part, when maybe things weren't going as well in the past game, there was some times where the Bills gave Brady fits and they were able to just buckle down and run the ball just well enough to win. And I've seen them do that in other games too against other teams. So the Bills need and Brian Dable coming from there, he's going to want to have that in his arsenal. Have the ability to tempo, do what we're doing best on that given day because things are so fluid and they change so much. Sometimes you just got to ride the hot hand as a running back, and I think the Bills have enough stable of backs that they can do that. But my point of saying that about the running game is this passing game, it needs to finally just come to life. And I'm not just talking about from last year, the year before, this decade, this century. I'm talking about entire Bills history. I did a live video about how WGR, the guys on there in the morning, talked about, you know, numbers for Josh Allen. What would be signs of life? What would be an upward trajectory? Show us that this guy is really getting there. And they threw out 3,500 yards passing and 25 touchdowns. And I said, well, in comparison to the rest of the league, that sounds doesn't sound that much to ask for. But then I sat there haven't been a Bills fan for over 30 years, and I started to think about it. I'm like, well, I'm like, I don't recall many seasons like that, to be honest with you. And then I go back and look, and truth be told, this organization in its 60-year history, damn near almost, has only had 6 35 plus 100 yard seasons passing. This organization in its history has only had 4 25 plus touchdown seasons passing. So yeah, this needs to change. And I'm not saying it's the end all be all, but this is not good at all. And 2 of those seasons in the 3,500 yard department are held by Joe Ferguson, 2 by Jim Kelly. The other 2 in the last 20 plus years, going on 30 almost, are Ryan Fitzpatrick in 2011 and Drew Bledsoe, the only 4,000 yard passer in franchise history in 2002. Before that, the last 35 plus 100 yard passer was Jim Kelly in 91, his best year. 33 touchdowns, franchise mark. The next closest touchdown mark to that is 26, Ferguson. Kelly has a 25 touchdown passing season, and Ferguson has one. And there's a bunch of guys with 24. Kelly, Fitzpatrick, Ferguson, Bledsoe. So yeah, this needs to be rectified. It needs to be just brought to life because I don't think it's ever gotten off the ground. I really don't. I think it's been grounded for a long time, whether it was organizational, but that was the philosophy. You play through the running back, and the quarterback is more of the management, the manager. Not so much. Kelly was not a game manager, but needs to, just keep things organized, keep things running fluidly, turnovers, efficiency, what have you. But he's not the catalyst for why the offense, starts, stops, or goes. The running back as was until Ralph Wilson passes, and then there's a big transition period. The Pegulas are finally they're 5 years into their ownership as the Bills, and I think that this is then they had the whole ground and pound looky here comes Cookie 1 3/4 year with Rex. That was obviously, it's like, look, we're just spinning our wheels here. We got to get into the 21st century and with this quarterback and with his arm and with these receivers that they've added. I'm not saying they're the best receivers, but they are a damn sight better than what they've had last year and the year prior. So they should be able to get 3,500 yards, provided Josh Allen's healthy, providing this receiving core stays healthy, and guys like Robert Foster, Zay Jones continue their upward trend. I don't think 25 touchdown passes is that much to ask for either. In in comparison to other organizations, these are pretty bottom ranked numbers. We're not just talking about the last 5 years, the last decade. We're talking about forever. So, and they can't use the weather. I've seen tons of other cities, stadiums get inclement weather, and they're still, whether it's the temperature, they're still able to move the football through the air. And I'll always 3 yards in a cloud of dust will have its place. You got a quarterback that like this can get a fourth and a yard with his eyes closed, running backwards. So yeah, Buffalo Bills, the passing game, it finally needs to take off. It finally needs to get off the ground. It's flight time, and I don't mean to steal a Jets thing, but or anything like that. It just please, and more so than ever, more so than anything, it's fun. Football, fun. Air yards are fun. Rushing yards, I mean, trust me, any kind of yards are fun. But when you see dynamic athletes in the air, ball being flung around, making plays, that is fun, especially when your team is doing it. And I'm not breaking any ground. We've seen far too long, too many other teams victimizing the Bills in that area, and it's time the Bills finally start reciprocating. So thank you guys. It's Thursday. First day of camp, like I said, I appreciate you all for watching. This is a short and sweet before I go to the gym. Just wanted to come do a quick one before I left. So, it's the first day of camp. I had to. Maybe I'll jump on and do a live sometimes this weekend to see if, anything popped off. Brian Gain back in the organization, that made some headlines. Jeremiah Searles, IR, pretty much done his time with the Bills. It's unfortunate. Suffered an off-season injury with his ankle. Had to have surgery, so it looks like his season is pretty much a wrap. But Gain back in the organization created a whirlwind to people trying to connect Clowney to the Bills, and I think that's just, again, no games. Got to get some clickbait, and that's all you got to do. Take a player like Clowney and just connect the dots to it, and then it's just it's all about feeding the machine when it comes to this type of stuff. But yeah, guys, have a great one. Take care. Let me know what you think about the passing game, where it finally needs to go, where it's never been before as an organization with the Bills, that we've never seen it before. And Gain back in the organization, a couple of lower end signings, Isaac Asiata guard and Abraham Wallace back. So again, nothing really of note there. A couple of number changes. Frank Gore switched from 28 to 20. John Brown 2 to 15 because of Damari Scott's release, and then Bill signed Kurt Coleman for Raphael Bush's retirement, which is good. The guy doesn't have it in him to play the game anymore. He steps away quick. Bills are able to bring in a solid veteran, a guy who's familiar with McDermott's system and scheme, and he's a leader. You can tell he's definitely a leader. He's definitely a guy that will take younger players aside and command that respect from them, and still have some game in them. So, okay, Bills fans, I'm done. Let me know what you think about all that and then some. Appreciate you watching. Have a great one. Enjoy it. The heat's finally sort of gone. Now it's just kind of normal summer weather. So thank God for that. And above all else, always go Bills.